Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de why I love offals and offcuts. And I'll limit it down to beef this time since I live in the land of beef these days. Lone Star Republic, baby! So I can easily find these products. Hey, XenPuck. Another day retired spent just stuffing myself with beefy goodness. Honestly, due to my immigrant cultural background, beef wasn't actually super big on the menu when I was growing up. So it wasn't really until I lived with my wifey that I started to buy into the whole flesh the cattle much more frequently, right? Obviously, my wifey is a standard red-blooded American raised on burgers and steak. Heck, she has explicitly made it clear that beef is her absolute favorite meat. I've been convinced of the beauty of beef mostly due to her superb steaks, but I mean, how many times can I eat steaks and burgers per week, right? So in my effort to make her and myself happy, I've branched out severely into the local supermarket selection of offcuts and offals. Of course, primarily of cattle. And I gotta give wifey credit that when she said she loves beef, she remains open to, you know, a great variety of beef, okay? And boy, oh boy, did we go down a rabbit hole, okay? In the last year, I'd say I've bought every kind of offal and offcuts I can find, and dare I say, I've actually been able to impress my wifey with some of these dishes, okay? Still, I know in the United States, at least offals especially gets such a bad rap. So today I want to give you some of my personal reasons as to why I think these cuts deserve your attention. Fellow carnivores, beef doesn't just mean steak and burgers, okay? It can be so much more. Obviously, comments, like and share on that social media nonsense, or whatever, okay? I'll be great regardless. So point number one, right? This is because I'm a frugal person, aka I'm basically rich enough for me, and that I feel offals are great because they provide fantastic value, right? Now let's compare offals to the most common beef products. Ground beef, aka literally the worst way to use beef, like why even bother? Ground beef is about $4 to $5. A reasonable beef chuck that you'd use for stewing comes in a little bit over $5 a pound, right? While steak, the creme de la creme of beef, can go all the way up to $15 to $20, even at the local supermarket. I'm talking about like a Wagyu prime level beef steaks, right? Oh boy, did I have sticker shock the first time wifey bought that fancy steak, right? But then I realized, let's compare to a steakhouse where I'd be paying $100 just for the steaks alone. So it's not that unreasonable, still pretty costly, right? Now let's compare to the offals and offcuts I've bought at our local Texan supermarket, famous HEB, okay? Beef heart, $1.97 per pound. Kidneys, $1.99 per pound. Liver, $2.37 a pound. Tripe, $2.84 per pound. Cheeks, around $4 per pound, and tongue at $9.64 per pound. So basically, besides tongue, almost all other offals are at ground beef prices or lower. Remember, ground beef is boring because it's meant to be molded into other things, right? Like burgers and meatballs, and I get it. Americans love those things. Hey, keep on eating those. What do I care? All I'm saying is that grounding anything makes it lose the original texture, and grounding is processing. So the more processing, the less fresh the actual product, okay? Beef cheeks at around the same price as ground beef, my God, I take cheeks every single time. Cheeks is actually one of my wifey's favorite dishes now. It is beautifully fatty and marbled and makes a fantastic stew. Heck, most of these can be subbed in for chuck if you ever have tried a beef stew recipe, okay? They're not really that hard to make, so if you throw in some like red wine and mushrooms, and then we're basically approximating one of those fancy French bouffe bourguignon recipes, okay? Personally, I just started at the cheapest level of offals and worked myself up because I'm new at cooking these things. This way, if I mess it up, who cares? No big loss at these prices. And guess what? I've never actually messed up on any of these that I listed, okay? When in doubt, just cook it a little longer as long as you don't treat these like steak. But a stew to let flavor and its natural fat do its magic, I think it easily works out, right? I must confess though, I have yet to make tongue actually. I think I would love tongue, but these are almost like steak prices, so I feel like I need to first find a recipe specifically for tongue that tempts me, right? But make no doubt, I will get there, and I will also mention that I think it is the most expensive out of this group, primarily because beef tongue is actually a relatively common ingredient in the local Tex-Mex taco scene. Point number 2, right? Eating offals because they indicate a personality that is not stagnant. I mean, I'm just a fan of generally adventurous eaters, right? Food is life after all, and people who won't try new things, honestly, how do you trust them, right? Okay, I get it. We all have our favorites from childhood, but not being willing to try new things just because it wasn't done, in your upbringing is really no excuse. After all, when you're younger, you didn't have a job or a spouse either, right? So if by the reasoning of only liking things that one had as a child, that would indicate complete stagnation, right? My other rebuttal is simply, how does anyone know that they won't like something if they don't try it with an open mind, right? Offals of cattle is still definitely beef, okay? Heck, parts like cheek and tongue might even be described as just the most beefy part of beef, okay? By the way, in this clip, I use offals and offcuts interchangeably because honestly, I don't even know where the differentiation begins or ends, right? Generally, we think of regular beef as the muscle of the animal, right? But frankly, a tongue is just a very often used muscle in a way that, beef cheeks is a very underused muscle, right? So they're not even really specialized organs, right? Besides the common, the usage rate of itself, right? And yet somehow, just because of where they're placed, they don't get the love of the main body parts such as like ribs or fillets or whatever. And what a shame. And don't forget, what about the heart, right? How is it that cheap? It actually surprises me because that is the muscle that gets used literally constantly. So if you like regular beef, aka body muscle of a cattle, surely the hardest working muscle in the body itself would be tempting, right? Think about it. And point number 3. Finally, I think eating offals makes sense because they're the food of champions, okay? AKA apex predators. Lions and tigers always go for organs first because they know what the most nutrient-dense part of the prey is. I mean, if I'm to be a proud carnivore, shouldn't I be copying what the king of the jungle or the Serengeti's eating, right? By the way, I'd also like to point out that on an animal like cattle, that we're talking about, right? There are a ton of regular muscle meat, but only one heart, a few stomachs and kidneys and other organs, right? But way less than the rest of the body weight. So offals are actually much, much more rare than regular beef. Maybe the great hunters of nature know this instinctively, that rarity makes the most prized value. Okay. I'm definitely making a little bit of human judgments on apex predators that make no sense, but you see where I'm going with this, right? I mean, technically, human beings are the real apex predators of the world, aren't we? And frankly, in lots of parts of the world, offals are prized because of its, stated relative rarity, just not in the US. I mean, I'm not knocking on American food culture because America is a melting pot of culture, so technically all things are eaten here. I'm just judging the very vanilla base level American food culture, right? Where the best and possibly only offal that you could find at, say, a 50s style diner would be what? Chopped liver, okay? Maybe scrapple? Oh man, now I'm distracted and wish I could have had some scrapple and not have to travel all the way to the mid-Atlantic southern-ish regions to get it. Anyway, I know, I don't have any pictures or clips of all these delicious offals that I'm talking about. But, you can easily find that on the internet, can't you? Okay, also because offals look different when raw, and I get it. Even when I first started cooking with them, they could look a little off-putting if you're not used to looking at them, but put in even a tiny amount of work, and to me, stews is very, very low effort when it comes to cooking, right? And I think most Americans will be very pleasantly surprised at the results. As for myself, one of these days, I'm gonna work myself up to the tongue. Okay, that sounded really weird, but I'm okay with my level of weirdness. How about you guys? Let me know in the comments below. Cheers, I'll approach it.